One of the best scholarships I ever received when I was in college was something we call a renewable scholarship. I received $4,000 per year for up to 4 years, and it was automatic renewal. I'll explain why this is amazing in just a moment. And I actually received multiple of these scholarships. So this is where I got the money year after year, all from one application. Now, the thing is, I did have to meet certain criteria in order to ensure that the money kept coming in. Now, they were pretty minimal, especially in comparison to having to find other scholarships to replace that scholarship money. But that's what we're going to focus on today. So today I'm going to talk about what are renewable scholarships, where you can find them, but more importantly, we're going to focus on how you and your student can ensure that if they do receive one of these, they can get that money year after year. That might sound a little concerning. Yes, they can lose it, but if you watch today's video fully to the end, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System and Debt-Free Degree Lab, where we solely focus on paying for college. We help families build strong financial futures rather than ones buried in student loan debt. And primarily, we do this by securing scholarships. In fact, our families have now surpassed $10 million in wins, which is amazing. So as you can imagine, we've seen these renewable scholarships time and time again, and these are the ones that our families really want to win. You'll understand why in just a moment. Now make sure you hit subscribe because every single week we're releasing a new strategy to help your family work towards that debt-free degree, including ones around these scholarships. Okay, so let's dive in. So renewable or recurring scholarships, they are just like what they sound. They are scholarships where your student can get the money year after year. Now, some are automatic renewal, where if they win at the beginning, they automatically get it as long as they meet criteria, which I'll explain in just a moment, every single year while they're in school. Sometimes it'll say up to 4 years, so that way if they stay 5, 6, 7 years, they know they're not going to keep getting the scholarship. And some of them might even give up to 5 years, depending on the degree program. For example, engineering often takes 5 years. Then there are some that are not automatic renewal, but they have the option of renewal up to 4 years. I'll explain this as well, but this is typically where a student will have to reapply. However, as an alumni winner, they usually have a leg up. It's usually pretty easy to get that win the following year. So myself, I got 6 figures in scholarships. I graduated completely debt-free, and I actually experienced both of these types when I was bringing in my wins. Now, there are also scholarships out there that are just one-time scholarships. These you see a lot. So that's the opposite of a renewable scholarship, where this is the award, it's for this year only, and it's a one-time thing. Sometimes students can reapply, but there's really no guarantee or any kind of renewal aspect to it. Now, these renewable scholarships can be from multiple different sources. Universities can offer 4-year scholarships or renewable scholarships. Also, private institutions, or what we call external or private scholarships, can also be one-time or they can be renewable. Now, comment below, has your student found and applied to any of these renewable scholarships? Have they been able to find any that they automatically would receive for 4 years? Or did they get one through the university maybe? Comment below, let us know what your experience is with this, and then maybe I'll record a follow-up video answering any questions that you have. Now, going back to the different types of renewable, this is where it's important to pay attention to the verbiage on the scholarship application. So if it says renewable up to 4 years, oftentimes that means that a student is not automatically eligible. It doesn't guarantee that it's for 4 years, but they can reapply for up to 4 years. Sometimes it is automatically renewable, but we want to be sure whenever we are applying to this, just so that we know what to expect. If we win this, do we get it all 4 years automatically? Because that is a big chunk off the bill versus a one-time thing. Now, say it is something where it's renewable as long as a student meets certain criteria, that's important to pay attention to as well. So we want to make sure that we meet the criteria, we meet any deadlines, put those in our calendar, whatever we need to do. I'll explain what kind of criteria in just a moment, but the idea here is we want to pay attention, because once a student loses their eligibility, Typically, they cannot get it back. I do have an exception to that I'm going to share, but we want to make sure that once we get it, it's a lot easier to keep it than to replace it. So let's get into some of the scholarship renewal requirements that we have seen. So different scholarships, different committees will require different things. A lot of times you might see a certain GPA, so their GPA cannot fall below a certain threshold. Very, very common with university scholarships. Sometimes you'll see it with the private renewable ones as well. It can also be maybe they have to attend a certain number of hours at school. So maybe they cannot fall into part-time. They have to be a full-time student, which would be 12 credit hours or 4 classes minimum in order to stay eligible. Again, very common for merit scholarships through the university. Also, you can see it sometimes with private. Another thing could be maybe attending a certain school. So if your student transfers, then they would lose eligibility to a certain scholarship. And this could even be private scholarships. Some private ones are specifically geared towards certain institutions. But of course, it would certainly apply to any merit scholarships through the university. And going off of that, it could also be based on major. So maybe your student changes their major. Now, this is where we do want to pay attention to requirements, especially because sometimes students will have to pay back the money. If they received money, say, to be a nurse, and then they change out of the nursing program, they might have to pay it back. For private scholarships, I really haven't seen this. For university scholarships or for state programs, for example, teaching, sometimes they have perks for teachers, but if you change out of teaching, then that scholarship becomes a loan that has to be paid back. So we want to make sure we understand the criteria here as far as getting the money each year, but also as far as not having to pay it back. Again, they do often understand that students change their major, but there are some that are pretty strict with it. So major matters as well. Lastly, it might be recurring as long as they're playing a sport. So if it's an athletic scholarship, maybe it's for all 4 years, but of course, if they left the team, they would lose that scholarship. Now, in addition to meeting certain criteria, sometimes scholarships will require you to submit certain information. So your student might have to collect some things and submit it each year in order to prove they're still eligible. When I won my scholarship, that was Renewable, it was $4,000 a year. And actually, I received that money personally. They sent it directly to me because the university, I was at my limit before they would start taking away from other awards. And so they generously offered, hey, we can send it directly to you. Now, it also came with a tax form. You want to make sure you do that legally. But that said, in exchange for that, they wanted receipts. So I had to submit a receipt at the end of the semester showing all the expenses that added up to that $4,000 per year. They allowed me to submit my rental agreement, so it was very easy once I started living off campus. However, for other semesters, I had to buy a computer 1 year or groceries. So really, they were pretty flexible on what they considered eligible expenses because they know you have to live and sleep under a roof and they know you have to eat. So they were pretty awesome about that. But that said, they did require me every year to prove that I used the money towards college. Students may also have to submit transcripts or proof of financial need. Maybe they have to submit a FAFSA report because maybe it's based on financial need or their EFC number that they get from FAFSA, which stands for Expected Family Contribution. They might ask for a thank you letter. This was something that I had to do for a different scholarship that was it was not automatic renewal. I had to reapply each year, but it was way easier to receive as an alumni than if I was a new applicant. But they wanted a thank you letter because all of the scholarships were compiled to one, and so you had certain donors that were contributing to your scholarship. And so my thank you letter would go to their donors, which I thought was really awesome, and honestly, students should do that anyway, but that was a pretty neat requirement. Sometimes you just have to submit a request saying, yes, I'm still enrolling. Yes, I still need that renewable scholarship, and the bill is due this date. This is where you can send the money. So sometimes it's just a matter of letting them know, hey, yes, I'm still here, still attending college, still kicking butt. Can you please send the money? So those are just some ideas of what scholarships can require in order to receive that renewable scholarship every single year. I do want to share where to find these, but before I get there, I just want to point out, please make sure you and your student are aware of any kind of criteria. If they receive the scholarship and they find out that they're a winner for 4 years, I would immediately ask, hey, what's the criteria every year to make sure that we get this money? put it on the calendar, write it down, whatever you need to do to make sure that you and your student remember. Because again, like I said, it's way easier to get that renewable scholarship each year when we've already been chosen as a winner, rather than having to find other scholarships and apply to them and hope that we get that as a new winner. So it's a lot easier to keep scholarships than to find new ones, right? So we want to make sure we're paying attention to the criteria. Now, as far as finding these scholarships, first and foremost, you want to attend our free training. I'm linking to it in the description below. All the amazing resources we have are in the description. Or you can go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free training, and there you will learn my exact steps on how I found these scholarships that were renewable. In fact, in that training, I share my favorite way to find scholarships, and that method was exactly how I found that $4,000 renewable scholarship. I will also share one of my favorite searches that led to the one that was not automatically renewable, but it was a lot easier as an alumni. In fact, if I didn't receive it as a senior in high school, I wouldn't have even been eligible to keep on applying. You had to receive it before you went to college, and after that, you can keep on applying for renewals. But if you didn't receive it that first year in senior year in high school, you weren't even eligible to apply once you got to college. So these are really important to find early on. And again, I share how to find those in that free training linked in the description below. Now let's talk about what happens if your student does not meet one of the criteria. The good news is it's not necessarily 100% game over. Not all hope is lost. In fact, actually, I love this story. One of our team members, they took a class that honestly they shouldn't have even been in, and their GPA dropped below a certain criteria in order to receive a $5,000 renewable scholarship. So this is a big scholarship from the university. Their GPA fell below the criteria, and they technically should have lost the scholarship, but they contacted the department, explained to them what happened, and said, hey, give me a semester, please, to raise that GPA. And they did, and they were able to keep that money. So sometimes they might give your student a grace period, maybe one semester, in order to pull back up their grades or re-fall into the criteria requirements, whatever it is that knocked them out. And that's very fortunate. So if that's the case, again, I always say it never hurts to ask. So please make sure your student asks if they did miss criteria versus just assuming all is lost. But technically, a scholarship can remove them from their eligibility if they do fall out of criteria. Now, the biggest thing is if your student is going to ask them to give them a grace period, they should also explain their plan to remedy this. So don't just say, hey, I promise that'll change. No, instead say, you know what, I already started attending office hours. I already hired a tutor. I already got a 100 on my latest exam. I'm already pulling the grades up. I just need time for it to show. Something like that. We want to show that we're taking this seriously. We have a game plan, not that we're just giving lip service and saying that we're going to change the circumstances. Okay, one last thing with this is also not to lie. So an organization will find out, please make sure your student doesn't lie about changing their major or grades, GPA, receipts, whatever it is. We want to be honest. These are good people giving money to good students, and we want to keep that going. And so we want to be as honest as possible and make sure that we are giving the truth and true information and documentation, and that will just increase our chances in the future of getting more money. Okay, so renewable scholarships, our families love these. They're such easy ways to get big wins and to really knock off what we have to pay for that university degree. So if your student is looking at renewable scholarships, or maybe they received one, if so, congratulations, comment below and let us know so we can cheer them on. But no matter what, it is important to understand scholarship renewal requirements and make sure that we can keep the money that we've already been chosen to receive. Now, don't forget about the resources in the description. We have that free training on where to find these scholarships, and you can also comment below with any questions that you have. Lastly, make sure you hit subscribe because every single week I'm releasing a new video on paying for college. All right, again, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System. I'll see you in the next video.